So I was 6 years old. It was 1989. Anyone else 1989 6-year-olds in here? Couple? We got 1, 2, 3. There's like 9 of us. We're going to take over the world. That's right. I was 6 years old. I was at my babysitter's house. Her name was BB. I don't know what her real name was. Maybe Betty. It's my best guess. Maybe her last name also started with a B, and that's where we got BB. I don't know. At 6 years old, details did not matter. All I knew was that her name was BB. BB would hit us with a fly swatter instead of spanking us if we got out of line. But BB also, she watched a bunch of kids. There was 6, 10, 15. I'm not sure how many kids. Details, again, were not my thing when I was 6 or 36 or 38 as I am now. But nevertheless, it just wasn't my thing. So I don't know. There's a bunch of kids, though, and there were 2 different groups of kids. There's little kids, which I qualified as a 6-year-old, and then there were big kids. And I don't know how old you had to be in the big kid group. I don't know. Again, that detail escapes me. The only thing I do know is that I couldn't be in the big kid group. And there was a big kid room that you could go hang out in if you were a big kid. And in that big kid room, there was the Nintendo with Zelda. And every once in a while, they would allow the Nintendo with Zelda to come out into the little kid room, which was the living room, and we could play. And I understood why they separated us, because I was incredible at Zelda, and those big kids couldn't handle me beating them. That's what it was. So I got it, but we rarely got it. But when we did, I made the most of it. However, in 1989, I'm 6 years old, the big kids are hanging out in their room. They're about to watch a movie, and I was fed up. I was done. I was like, that's it. I'm done waiting. I'm done waiting to be a big kid. It's time for me right now to take advantage of this opportunity. The lights are low. They're prepping for this movie. I'm going to sneak in and watch the big kid movie, right? That's what I'm going to do. And so I waited, and I'm waiting for my time. I'm outside just pretending like I'm not doing anything, waiting for one of them to have to go to the bathroom real quick, and I'm going to slip in. When that door opens, as they go, I'm going to, and it's dark. They're focused on the screen. I've got a plan. My plan worked flawlessly. One of them, right as the movie was coming on, you could hear the lion roar, or whatever it was going on in there, whatever the opening credits were. You could hear it happening. And I was like, man, this is the movie starting. So sure enough, one had to go to the bathroom. You know how kids are. They always got to go to the bathroom, right? The most important part. That's what they do. So they ran out of the room, and sure enough, I slid in. I went down the wall like this, and I got to the back, and I sat in the back, and I watched one of the greatest pictures that ever graced cinema in the history of the world. Changed my life. You know what I'm talking about. Top Gun. Let's go! Man, what I saw on that screen. What I saw on that screen. Talk to me, Goose. I feel the need. That's what I'm talking about. For those of you who live in the Stone Age or under a rock, Top Gun was released in 1986. So it's been out for a little while, just a bit. So film about fighter pilots. Go to this Top Gun school. The main character, this guy, you probably know him as Tom, Mr. Cruise. His character is a guy named Maverick. His partner was a guy named Goose. Maverick and Goose. And there's this one particular scene where they're in competition at the beginning of this Top Gun school, and they compete. And so it's dogfighting. So it's like fighter jets going up against other fighter jets, and they got to missile lock on people, and you get points, and you don't actually shoot them down because you're all on the same team really, but you're competing against each other in this school. And so Maverick and Goose, and then they got this other crew, Hollywood and Wolfman. They're up in this one particular scene, and they're on the same team. In fact, Maverick and Goose are the wingman for Hollywood and Wolfman. And so Hollywood and Wolfman are here, and then Maverick and Goose are right here. And so they're supposed to make sure that nothing happens, no one comes up behind them, that they're safe. And so it's 2 against 1. And they're fighting against, in this tutorial, this place where you get points, they're fighting against their instructors. Jester and Viper, right? So Jester and Viper, so it's 2 planes against 2 planes, but they didn't know that Jester and Viper were both up there. They just thought one of them was up there, but all of a sudden the big man, Viper, he gets up there, he's like, good afternoon, gentlemen, it's 108 degrees here in the desert, whatever, and all of a sudden oh, shoot, Viper's here. They didn't say shoot probably, but they're like, oh no, that's what's happening. And so all of a sudden Maverick is like, hey, the top fighter pilot in all the United States is now in the air, and in his mind he's like, I'm going to get him. Because Maverick is all about himself. He's all about himself. Now, he's the wingman. He's not the front guy. He's the number 2 guy. And so they're behind Jester. Jester's also pretty impressive, but he's not Viper. And so they're behind him, and he's telling Goose, he's like, hey, find Find Viper. He's like, I can't see him. I don't see him anywhere. And so Goose knows what's happening. Goose knows that Maverick is thinking, I'm about to leave and go after Viper. And so he's telling him, he's like, hey, do not leave your wingman. This is not a good idea, Mav. That's what he's saying. Right? And so sure enough, they see Viper, 3,000 feet, going behind a mountain. And Goose is like, don't do it, man. Don't do it, man. And he's like, he's fine. Hollywood's fine. I'm going after Viper. And he does the thing, and then he goes after him. And before you know it, he's about to get missile lock on Viper. And sure enough, the bell tolls. And someone's got missile lock on him. He's dead. Because the guy he left got shot down by the other instructor. And he came around behind him and shot Maverick too. Right? Loses it. Now, the good news is, if you've never seen this movie before, spoiler alert, here it comes. You've had 30 years. It's your problem, not mine. Is in the end, Maverick learns his lesson. And so the first time, it's like for points. It's like, this is a competition. But in the end, it's like real life. Like people are actually shooting each other down. There's a conflict. And Maverick's in the same place, and he's got to choose. Do I stay with my wingman or do I not? In fact, the other guy is not Goose anymore because Goose came to a tragic end. But his new partner is like, we got to go. He's coming around on us. And Maverick actually says, I'm not leaving my wingman. So it takes about 2 hours and 6 minutes for Maverick to learn this lesson. Okay? So in about 2 hours and 6 minutes, I would imagine you will learn a lesson too. It's going to be a long day. Strap in. I'm just kidding. I've got 26 minutes and 40 seconds according to my timer in the back. So we'll be done about 10 minutes after that. Okay? And we'll be good to go. I don't know why it takes us so long as human beings in real life to learn the same principle that this movie is made about. I'm not leaving my wingman. But it does. There's sometimes we get to look into the story of God and we get to pick apart a verse and kind of go word by word or line by line, and that's really helpful. But then there's also moments where we get to actually read stories. And these are stories of people's lives, and when we read through these stories, there's a lot to gather, and so it might not be line by line, but it's the story as a whole. And we get to ask the question, what does it have to do with us? How does this impact who we are and the way we see the world? And there's this one particular story that I want to look at this morning, and the book called Ruth. Now, the main character in this particular story is not Ruth. It's actually a lady named Naomi. Naomi is a wife. And this wife, with her husband, they have 2 boys. And they ended up, life isn't always easy, and so they end up relocating, and a bunch of stuff happens. There's a famine, things are hard. The 2 boys end up getting married, and so her family of 2 becomes a family of 4, and then becomes a family of 6. And it's like, hey, this is going. Like, things aren't great. Like times are tough. But, the family's growing. This is good. Like, this is a positive thing. So there's things to be excited about, things to be proud of, things to say, man, this is good. God is good to me. Like, even in the midst of hard times, look at this family. My boys got their girls, and I got my husband. Like, this is good. But things don't stay that way. Before you know it, her husband passes away. And so then she's just left with the boys and their wives, and before you know, there's not a lot of explanation. Then her sons pass away. And so it's just her and the daughters-in-law. That's it. There's just 3 of them. She's gone from 2 to 4 to 6 to 5 to 3. And so she recognizes she's older now, and she's past the age where she's going to be able to have children. And so she's got these 2 daughters-in-law that, she's like, what? Okay. And so she comes up with a plan. She said, here's the deal. My life is over. Right? In this particular part in time and a piece of history in the Bible, without a husband and without sons and without the ability to have children, you don't have a lot of options. You've got pretty much 2. You can do prostitution or you can beg. Like, those are pretty much your 2 best options. She realizes this. Like, as a woman, I just got nothing. I'm just up the creek, and this is it. In fact, she goes so far to say that God's hand has left me. And so she tells her daughters-in-law, she says, hey, y'all are still young enough to have kids. And so my life is done. I don't know what I've done, but God has decided that this is my punishment. And so it is what it is. But y'all go start your new lives. Go and do something with your life. Don't stick around here. You don't have to stay with me. You don't have to stay with me at all. In fact, she goes so far to say, In Ruth 1:13 it says, "It is more bitter for me than for you, because the Lord's hand has turned against me." It is more bitter for me than for you, for the Lord's hand has turned against me. So I'm encouraging you, I'm begging you, I'm saying, look, disconnect yourself from me. Disconnect yourself from me, because I'm living a bitter life right now. It is tough to swallow. One of her daughter-in-laws, her name's Orpha, she's like, deuces, see ya, I'm out of here. Anybody got a daughter-in-law like that? No? Nobody? Oh, you don't want to say that out loud? Okay, my bad. Gotcha. Cool. But the other daughter-in-law, her name is Ruth. And Ruth says one of the most incredible things that someone can say to another person in a relationship. In Ruth 1:16, Ruth looks back at her mother-in-law and she says, "Don't urge me to leave you or turn back from you. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you and me." She looks her in the face and says, "I'm not leaving my wingman." Now, when we look at this, all of a sudden we begin to realize why the book is named Ruth and not Naomi. And now when we break that down just a little bit, if we pick it apart, some pretty interesting things. Ruth is saying, she begins that whole passage out with, don't urge me to leave you. Don't urge me to run away from you. Don't urge me to do that. And you know what I'm talking about. It's like when you're out to eat with somebody and they decide that they're going to pick up the check, and then like they reach for it, and then you got this decision to make. You're going to be like, "Oh, no, you don't have to do that. Oh, no, don't do that. I don't do that." You know what I'm talking about. If I'm ever with you and you pick up the check, I'm going to say, "Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I appreciate it, because I'm grateful. I'm just grateful, this is good. You know what I'm saying? Now, if I happen to pick up the check, I want you to do the same thing. I'm not interested in having a debate. Like, that just always gets awkward. Like, it's like, it's like, you know what? I looked at my bank account. I'll have at least 10 cents left after this transaction is over. So we're fine. We're good. Okay, let me do this. All right? I'm all right. I know my finances when I made a decision. It's fine. Just don't tell my wife. It's fine. But that's what she's saying. She's like, "Hey, I don't want to argue with you about this. Don't urge me. I've already made up my mind. I've made a decision. This is what I'm going to do. Don't urge me to leave you or turn back from you. You've already said what you're going to say. I've heard it, and now I've made a decision. Don't urge me to do it, to undo my decision." She says, "Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay." The truth is, in Naomi's mind, she's like, maybe I can get in a widow community. Maybe I go back home. And there's a crew that maybe will take care of widows. Maybe that's what I can do. She's certainly not going to go buy a piece of property. Can't do that. She's not going to trade anything. She's not an asset. She's not going to be able to do any of those kind of things. And so when Ruth says, "Hey, where you go, I'll go. Where you stay, I'll stay," she's saying, even if you've got nowhere to go, I'll go nowhere to go with you. Even if you have nowhere to stay, well, that's me and you on the street then. It says, "Your people will be my people, and your God, my God." Now, this is interesting. She says, "Hey, I want your God to continue to be my God," which to me tells me that Naomi, up until this moment, has lived in a way that has honored God, honored Yahweh, Jehovah. And all of a sudden, Naomi says, "Hey, I don't know why, but God's hand has turned against me." But even in that moment, Naomi's not saying, "And now I'm abandoning God." She's just saying, "Hey, get away from me, because God clearly is not, he is not for me at the moment." But Ruth is saying, "Hey, even in the midst of that, because of the faithfulness that you've shown, I still want your God to be my God. Even if he can do as you say and turn his hand against us, I still want your God to be my God." It says, "Where you die, I will die, and there I'll be buried." So far to say, may the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you and me. Wow. What a statement of relationship. What just an incredible show of connect in this. When we ask the question, hey, what do we take from this? What do we walk out in our own lives? There's a few things that I want to walk through this morning in our time together. The first one is the simple heading, relationships matter. Relationships matter. Now, a lot of times this shows up in family. A lot of us have family that are close. And man, how incredible it is to have your family close. To have somebody that you can call on that honestly can't say no because they're blood related, right? I mean, they just can't, right? You know what I'm saying? Like there's some guilt there. That's always positive. Oh, y'all got a bunch of family that says no, don't you? That's no good. I'm sorry. But you got family. That's always a good thing. But there's also some of us that don't have family close, right? Family's a state away, or they live north of I-20, and that might as well be Kentucky, to be honest with you. You know what I'm saying? It's a completely different world. Who goes there? So these relationships, whether it's family or relationships matter. The question that we first got to ask is, how much do they matter? How much do they matter? What do they matter more than? I want you to think about your top 5 relationships real quick. Just top 5 relationships you got. It could be family. It could be a mixture of family and friends. Could be all friends. I'm not sure. It depends on where you're at in your life, right? Your top 5 relationships. You're like, man, these top 5 really make they just give my life a lot of just juice. Like, this is good. Now, how much would I have to pay you to let them all go? When I say let them go, I mean you don't get to say goodbye, even if they're in the same room with you right now. It's just you get up and walk away. You never speak to them again, never see them again. Completely disconnected. How much would it cost for me to get you to do that? I mean, can I do it for like $500? $500? Some of y'all are like, I need lunch money, let's go. $1 million? Could I give you $1 million to walk away from that relationship? And I mean like clean break, walk away. Not even like Facebook stalk them to see what they're up to. I mean like you never see them, an image of them ever again. Would $1 million do it? 10 million? Are those relationships worth 10 million? There's got to be a number somewhere, right? How much do relationships matter? I tell you, those kind of relationships that are in your mind, that top 5 list that you just came up with, those top 5 lists, these thick and thin, these, man, this is it, this gives my life to juice, this right here, just, man, this energizing, this kind of stuff. I think you're going to find that there's 3 things that are present in those relationships that you can find and figure out how to carry them over into other relationships, and that's what makes them solid relationships. I'm going to give you 3 things this morning. In other words, good relationships require these 3 things. The first one is risk. Every good relationship, those relationships you just thought of, like, man, I'm not giving that up for $10 million, right? Whatever the number is, keep putting a number, I'm not giving that relationship up, right? I promise you that relationship's got some risk in it. And when we talk about relationship, we're talking about maybe some vulnerability, where it's the kind of relationship that you can say, you know what, I'm actually going to let you know that I'm not perfect. That I'm not as Instagram looking as I look typically. You know what I'm saying? Like I got this Instagram, Facebook thing, but the truth is I got a little bit of a show happening, a little poop show happening behind the scenes. I'm going to let you smell a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And you just let them in. Like, that's a little vulnerable. You're vulnerable. Like, I'm just going to be real with you. I'm not just going to be flawless with you. Or maybe it's not only that, hey, you got some struggles happening, but it's also this admission of, not only do I not have everything together, I have some things in my life that I'm not proud of. Right? It's not that I just don't have everything right. It's that there's actually some stuff in my life that I don't do right. And I struggle with it. And now those vulnerable, those risky relationships happen because now they know. That's some risk. You risk in those relationships. And sometimes in relationships, there's more giving than receiving. There's seasons where there's more giving than receiving, right? And who knows what that season or that defined season will be, you know? Who knows what that defined season will be? But you know that the relationship is struggling when someone in that relationship says, you only call me when you need something, right? Because the truth is, though, is that that's part of the risk, is that you're entering into a relationship with someone and that you acknowledge that there's going to be times in my life where they give to me a lot more than I have the ability to give to them, and then vice versa. And maybe those seasons go for 1 or 2 years. I don't know. It just kind of depends on the rhythm and roll of life and just what you have the capacity to withstand. But the really good $10 million kind of relationships will have seasons where it's not balanced in giving and receiving. And that's a risk. Because you risk being the person that gives more than receives for periods of time in people's lives. Now, I will acknowledge, you go a decade and a half and all you've done is give and they ain't received nothing. That might be a little one-sided, right? That's not a season. That's like half a lifetime for me right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's it. Like, I graduated high school and then I've just sucked the life out of everybody. Like, that's no good, you know? But there's a risk. A second thing you'll find in really good relationships is loyalty. But what is loyalty? I mean, honestly, does our culture even know what loyalty is anymore? It's I'm sticking with you. It's that ride or die type relationship. It's that, hey, I'm also recognizing that with that risk, there's going to be seasons of your life where you make some decisions that aren't that great. But I'm going to be loyal to this relationship, and I'm going to stick with you because you need someone to stick with you through this. Now, there's a limit to this, right? I mean, we're not Thelma and Louising here, like into the Grand Canyon together. Like, that's not a good idea. Y'all haven't seen Thelma and Louise? Y'all probably haven't seen Top Gun either, have you? Good gracious. Thelma and Louise, look it up. You should watch it. It's going to change, well, it might not change your life like Top Gun, but you'll know what I'm talking about, right? Like, we're not going to do that together. We're not Bonnie and Clyde here to each other's demise. But we're saying, hey, I'm going to be loyal. Because if friends are only friends when things are good and everything's right, they're not the $10 million friends. If the moment you start making mistakes, like, I'm done. I ain't got time for this. The third thing you'll find in those great friendships is responsibility. In other words, you don't run from conflict, but you engage in it. Where you say, you know what, I'm going to be responsible because I have a vested interest. We have a vested interest in one another. Where I'm going to bring conflict to the table with you. And we're not always going to agree. But I'm not worried about you disconnecting from me because of conflict, because I know you're the $10 million kind of friend. You're one of those people that I can't even put a price on it. So I know us disagreeing on something is not going to run you off. In fact, the truth is, the reason we disagree is because you didn't make a change because you're wrong and I'm right. That's the way it is, right? But we're going to enter into this conflict and we're going to disagree with one another because that's what good friends ought to do. And if you look at those friends that really give you the sauce in your life, I'm telling you, it's already there, isn't it? There's already moments of conflict that push you to rethink, that beg you to reconsider. Risk, loyalty, responsibility. The truth is, with any good relationship, there's always these little landmines that stick up and stick out. And when you step on one of these, it has a tendency to blow up in your face. There's 3 keys to these really good, solid relationships. It's risk, loyalty, and responsibility. But there's also 3 really common landmines that if you step on them, it leaves you with 2 choices. The first one is disappointment. When a friend disappoints you. You know, when a friend, they just make a choice, they make this choice and it's just wrong. And you're disappointed. Right? You're just, like, I just can't believe he did that. I just can't believe she would do that. Like, I'm just so disappointed in him. I'm so disappointed in her. I I just would have never thought that. I would have never thought that that would have been something that they would do or that they would say. And when disappointment shows up in our relationships, we step on that landmine, we get a choice. We get one of two choices. You can disconnect or you can dig. Those are your two choices. You can disconnect and say, gosh, I really thought better of her. But she made her choice. So now she's going to live with the consequences. One of those consequences, even though I'm not going to tell her, is I'm separating myself. I'll tell everybody else, though. She'll find out eventually. So we're going to disconnect. That's choice one. Choice two is to dig. It's to go back to the healthy pieces and say, look, I'm going to have some responsibility. And so I'm disappointed, but I want to know why. What's your thought process? Walk me through how we got here. Walk me through how you came to this conclusion. Walk me through how you got led to this place where you made this decision. And you're saying, hey, because I value you in this relationship, I'm okay with the conflict that comes from me asking you the question, why did you do this? Why did you do this? If the relationship doesn't matter, disconnect, move on. But when the relationship matters, dig. Ask the hard question. Ask the tough question. Dig into it. Don't take, I don't know for an answer. Say, no, that's cool. In fact, next time your friend, when you're digging, says, I don't know, say, great. I was hoping you didn't know because I'm here to help you discover it. Because I believe the next great step in your life is for you to know why you just did this. And I'm here to help you figure it out. Two choices. Disconnect or dig. Second relationship landmine is absence. You know, sometimes life just gets crazy, you know? Sometimes life gets crazy and like you go like 2 or 3 months and you haven't talked for some reason, right? It just happens. And so on the other end of that, maybe it's been 90 days. Maybe it's been like a full 3 months. Let's just pretend it's been a full three and a half months and another Wednesday. 3.5 months and a Wednesday. And then all of a sudden you're thinking, like, man, I hadn't heard from them in a long time. I guess they don't like me no more. Like, you know what? Let me figure out what's going on. So you jump on Facebook or Instagram and you check out. And you're like, hold on a second. They are still doing things. They are still alive. They still going to trivia. They didn't invite me. They didn't went to the Braves game with some other friends. So they got friends. So where have they been? Why hadn't they called me? When you have absence, you get two choices when you step on that landmine. You can allow it, or you can initiate. You can allow it and just say, all right, well, you know what? They hadn't called me in 3.5 months on a Wednesday. They're lost. I'm going to move on. I'm going to keep checking on the Facebook, but I'm going to move on. I'm completely moved on. Except for when I'm on Facebook. I'm 100% moved in on their profile. So you can allow it or you can initiate. Because here's the truth. Here's the truth. If you haven't heard from somebody in 3.5 months and a Wednesday, guess what? They haven't heard from you either in 3.5 months and a Wednesday. You know what I'm saying? Like there hasn't been no communication. It's two ways. In absence, move in. Initiate. And what you might find is that they think they disappointed you. And so there's a little bit of shame that comes when you think you've disappointed someone you admire or that you hold in such high esteem. Because they know that y'all have got shared values that they didn't live up to for a weekend or a month or a week or a moment. And so they say, I can't go with I told you so or whatever that they think would happen with you. And so they just distance themselves. And they're just waiting, praying, because they know you know. Maybe that's what you find. Or maybe you find the opposite. Maybe you find that that they're disappointed in you. And you had no idea. And you didn't know that comment you made last trivia night that you thought was hilarious and funny and everyone else laughed. You just didn't catch that they were in the corner like, I can't believe you just said that. I bet she was talking about me. I bet he was talking or referring to me. So they decided to disconnect. So initiate. Because relationships matter. The third relationship landmine is disagreements. And now, this disagreement could be anything as small as, whether to park in the garage or not, how to mow your grass, the fact that they don't mow their grass, talking about neighbors, it could be something like that. Or it could be something like, I cannot believe they voted for him. They voted for her. So these disagreements we allow to create distance. We step on that disagreement landmine. We've got two choices, just like the rest of them. Two choices. Divide or diversify. Those are your two choices. You divide and say, all right, well, you vote how you want to. Think how you want to. Let your grass grow tall how you want to. Slob. Do all those things, right? Think how you want to. Or you can say, you know what? It's about time I had a friend that didn't think just like me. So I'm going to diversify a little bit. I'm actually going to lean into it because they think a little differently than I do. Even if they're wrong. What if they're wrong? What if they think like you and they are wrong? Like they just vote for the wrong person. You know what I'm talking about? And you are dead set that there's only one right. And they have voted for the wrong person altogether. We asked a question earlier. How much would it cost for you to walk away from those top 5? I offered $10 million and everybody was like, nope, not going to do it. But a bunch of us have walked away because they voted Democrat. Or they voted Republican. We didn't get a dime of that money. But that was the price we were willing to pay. So how much are relationships worth? How much are they worth? The truth is, good relationships survive because of good decisions when it comes to the hard choices. Good relationships survive because of good decisions when it comes to the hard choices. You step on a landmine, you get two choices, and you make a good decision when it comes to a hard moment. That's how relationships survive. You see, Ruth, she did her part. There's landmines all over that road. I'm picturing, it doesn't tell us exactly, but I'm picturing like Naomi, the mother-in-law, standing like on a road. And her two daughter-in-laws are standing there with her. And she's like, I'm going this way. Doesn't say this, but I'm going this way. And y'all need to go that way. We need to separate, And like it's just this movie cinematic scene. Slow music's playing. Naomi's slowly backing up. Orpha's already given the deuce, I'm out of here. She's gone. And Ruth is just standing there because she's got a decision to make. And Ruth makes a decision that shows that relationship mattered more than the prosperity that likely was promised if she were to separate herself and enter into another relationship where she could produce kids and do all those things that you would do at this particular part in time in history. She leans in. And then Ruth goes on to live a life where she enjoys the riches of decisions of relationships, of keeping relationships. Now, that's not what's promised. Like, hey, you stay in good relationships and you get wealthy. None of those things, right? Like, that's not what happens. But the relationship decisions that you do make, they are the fabric of your life that when you look back on, you begin to define moments and seasons and decades of your life by where you were and who you were with. And that was a decision that Ruth made. Now, I'm not going to spoil the end for you in terms of give you the details. I'm going to tell you a little I'm going to sum it up for you how it ended up going. But Ruth is a really simple book to read. It's only 4 chapters. It'd probably take you 15 to 20 minutes to read this story entirety of Naomi and Ruth. And it starts right at the beginning with life is good, and then she starts losing the boys that are in her life. And then it picks up from there, and it's the story of these two. It's like I said, it's 4 chapters. So I want to encourage you to go read it. It's really simple to find if you got a Bible. If you get the Bible app, you can just go to alphabetically, go to Ruth, read those 4 chapters. But let me just give you a summary of what happens. Ruth ends up going back and to this hometown, and there's this guy. There's some Jewish heritage and rituals and customs that are in place when it comes to when people lose their husbands. And so Ruth is the one that initiates to try to make this custom apply towards Naomi. And she pushes it all the way through until a kinsman redeemer, a guardian, he comes and he actually says, hey, I'm going to stand up and do the right thing. And so Ruth is an enormous piece of how that unfolds. You should go read it. Naomi and Ruth are taken care of. God's hand had not left them. They were provided for. Now, here's the really interesting thing about Ruth. Ruth gets married, which is a big part of how this whole thing happens. Ruth has a son. The son, his name's Obed. Obed then has a son, which Ruth's then grandchild. Obed's son is named Jesse. Jesse has a bunch of boys. One of them, her great-grandchild, is named David. King David. The greatest king in the history of Israel. And she's his great-grandmother. Because she chose relationships. She chose loyalty. She chose responsibility. She risked because the person mattered. Now, not only does she become the great-grandmother of King David, she's also one of 5 women that will forever be listed and mentioned in the genealogy of Jesus Christ. Only 5 of them. And here forever, for all of history, people will read that Ruth is a part of the genealogy of Jesus. Jesus comes from the house of David. David's great-grandmother is Ruth. She didn't even grow up a Jewish woman. She marries into a Jewish family. She didn't grow up believing in Yahweh or Jehovah. But there was a relationship that pointed her in that direction. That relationship became so valuable to her. She said, I am with that, and I'm following that because there's something about it. And she chooses relationships, and she chooses loyalty. And you know what her reward is? She enters into the great, enormous story of God and plays an enormous role in it. Come on. At Foundation, we are creating a You Belong Here movement, which means relationships matter a ton to our church. And so we try to think through, how do we give you great opportunities to build and create relationships? I can't force someone into your top 5. Like, that's not what we do. Like, we're not like Tinder for churches. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not what we're doing. But what we are trying to do is to create an opportunity for you to be introduced to or get connected with someone that maybe 10 years from now, you begin to define the past decade by what you've gone through together and what you accomplished with one another. We do this a myriad of ways. We do it through teams, through groups, all those things. And every once in a while, we put on specific events that are geared specifically for this. Now, about 6-7 weeks ago or so, we did a women's only event. It was called Tables of 8. They went just smashingly well. Anybody here do Tables of 8? Let me get a whoop whoop if you got a Tables of 8. Oh, okay, that's a good way. That was pretty good. Whoop whoop. A little weak on this side, but that side was pretty good. So that was for ladies. Ladies, sorry, we're leaving you out this time. So we're going to close with, we've got a guys thing coming up. So, a little whoop. That's good. Just a single whoop from the fellas. So here's the deal. About a year and a half, 2 years ago, we started planning this event. It turns out that we're not the ones in charge of how this thing whole works. And so we've had to delay it like 4 different times. We got so close to announcing it multiple times. And this time we decided we can't do it until like a couple weeks out because they keep moving it. So we reached out to Regal, and we have booked the theater on opening weekend for Top Gun Maverick. How about it? Yeah, that was good. Yeah, you can clap for that. If you're a guy, if you're a lady, sorry. Here's the deal. I know. So, you cannot sneak in. No. So here's the deal. So they've worked with us to have a theater on opening weekend. Then we purchased every seat that's in there. There's 100, right? So it's the first 100 guys that sign up. We're taking care of your movie tickets, a guys' night to see Top Gun opening weekend. Now here's the deal. We've been working on this forever with them to try and figure it out, and getting an opening weekend was a big deal. I was like, I don't want to do this like 2 or 3 weeks later. I want an opening weekend. So we got an opening weekend. Now here's the deal. So I also realized, though, and honestly, compared to other men's events, this is super cheap for us to do. Like they gave us a great deal to do the whole theater. It's been really great. This is a good thing. Now, on top of that, though, I realized that budgets are kind of tight, right? And movie theater popcorn is like super expensive. Now, we can't afford movie theater popcorn for everybody. We actually could, but we're not going to. But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. What we are going to do, if you're one of those guys, it's like, look, my wife is not going to let me go and spend money on popcorn without her or a drink. I've got a way out for you. Every guy that shows up in a flight suit, that's right, a flight suit, or a bomber jacket with aviators on, I'll take care of your popcorn and your drink, right? That's it. You know what I'm saying? So if you show up in a flight suit, right, and I'm telling you, you can go on Amazon and get you a flight suit for way cheaper than popcorn. If you're just trying to do the math, you're like, okay, how do I make this work? You show up in a flight suit or in a bomber jacket with aviators, I'll take care of your popcorn and your drink that night. So it's 7 o'clock, May 28th. That's opening weekend, right? It's a Saturday night, and we've got the theater right down here, the biggest one they've got. We rented out the whole thing. It's going to be a really great night. So if you're disconnected right now and you're thinking, well, I would go if I knew somebody who was going. That's why we're doing this, right? Like, if you don't know anybody who's going, that's a good idea. Like, imagine that. Like, what if like 50 people who don't know anyone else is going go, and then all of a sudden, like, your friends holding hands and, like, you know, dancing down the aisle. We're not going to do that. We're not doing that. None of that will happen, right? We're just going to, like, grunt and do guy stuff in the theater by ourselves. And we might make a mess, but we paid for someone else to clean it up. You know what I'm saying? That's it. We'll leave our underwear on the floor where we want to. Not in the theater. It's PG-13. It's PG-13. It's going to be fine. This will be good. So because we didn't want the 9 o'clock to get a head start and, like, eat up all the seats, we've set it to open at 3 o'clock today. So at 3 p.m. today, you can jump on and grab a seat ahead of time, right? So 3 o'clock today. And here's the deal. The only way to get this is through the app. So if you're one of those husbands who's like, well, my wife does all the app stuff. I don't know how to use the app. Grow up. You're a grown man. Come on. Get the app. I know you know how to download apps on your phone. It's fine. So just download it, and you can open it up, and you can hit the button, and you can do it. You know what I'm saying? It's super easy. Today at 3 o'clock, first 100 folks that sign up, we're going to be hanging out, watching Top Gun Maverick together, just at Ashley Park, right down the street on the 28th. At the end of the day, we honestly do believe in creating a You Belong Here movement, which means you got to take a little risk. So I encourage you to do that if you're sitting on the fence.